Alright, so now we've learned the major triad arpeggio, but just like with the chords where we added in sevenths, now we're going to add in a seventh into our arpeggio. So rather than a C major arpeggio, we're going to make it a C major 7 arpeggio. So the notes for that are going to be C, E, G, and B. And once we start applying that to the guitar, there ends up being, just like with the triads, lots of different ways that you can play this. So this can seem kind of overwhelming when you're just starting off, but like I said, just take one and try to play it through all keys, cycle 5. And I usually, with my students, it can take 6 months to a year just to learn some of the basic arpeggios on the guitar, because there are so many ways to play it. But it's a very useful tool for being able to outline chords, and that can really help you to get that jazz sound. And there's also other techniques that later on we'll get into in more advanced courses for this jazz series, where I show you different types of improvisational concepts that you can use using arpeggios. So it's a very important thing to get these arpeggios together. And remember, don't just think of the fingering. Try to think of what notes you're playing, and that gets kind of harder once you're thinking of it in all these different keys. But if you really spend the time and kind of develop knowing the notes like you know the language of the, like English, you know all the words and you just naturally speak them. That's how you want to get with music, so that you just know, if somebody says, what are the notes in a G flat major 7 arpeggio? And you go, oh, that's G flat, B flat, D flat, and F. You know it off the top of your head. You don't even really have to think of it. So there's some books that you can use with this. One would be the Music Theory Workbook for Guitar, Volume 1. That would really help you to get to know all these arpeggios. It will also help you with adding tensions into arpeggios, which is another concept of improvisation that people use a lot in jazz. So that would be a way to help you get to know these, because just playing them once is not going to do it. You really need to get so these things are just second nature to you, and at drop of a hat you can say what those notes are. So this is going to be like a long process, but if you really like jazz and you want to play it, that's the way to go. Alright, so now let's take a closer look at playing a C major 7 arpeggio. We've just already learned a C triad arpeggio, and all we're going to do is add a note onto that. So we'd have our C back up here at the 8th fret, and then an E on the next string at the 7th fret, G at the 10th fret on that same string. But now we're going to add a B up here on a D string at the 9th fret. And there's our major 7 arpeggio. So that's going to take a little while physically just to play. Remember, there's going to be 4 different shapes that you could use for these, which if you get the PDF and look at that, you'll find that there's a bunch of different ways to play this. But to start with, just kind of concentrate on staying on one form, and that will help you over time. This is like the form B that I show you in the PDF. So it helps to stay with one form for a while until you kind of feel comfortable with it, and then start using a different form. So now let's look at playing this and jamming with the C major 7 arpeggio. Okay, so back to applying this now. I would first of all just start in one position. Just so you can kind of get used to those notes and how they sound. Don't be afraid to play the note more than once, or just to play a couple of them. Then, spend 5 minutes doing that. Then maybe look at another place that you could play it. Just consult the PDFs. And maybe, stay on that for a little bit. Then maybe up here. And maybe up here. With arpeggios, you start getting into sweeping across strings too. Here, you can see that's what I'm doing right here. Type of thing that Wes Montgomery, a famous jazz guitar player, used a lot. sound to arpeggiate by using sweep picking. You can go down too. Now let me just improvise a little bit with just a C major arpeggio, major 7 arpeggio all over the guitar. Notice I'm using some articulations. Hammer on and pull off. Or just take a few little notes. That's just a B and a C and a G. So there's really a lot you can do with this. But you can see, to be able to move around like this, you really have to learn all the positions of the 7th chord. But you can see it really gives you a different type of improvisation than using a scale.